Yeah, I think number one, we're excited. You know, you put a lot of work in since January, and now you're kind of getting to game week. You're getting closer, so I think there's an excitement level. I think there's an eagerness to get a chance to go and play under the lights and in front of the fans. And so I think there also been a work mentality. You know, hey, we got to prepare. We got a lot of work to do. You know, the best teams I've ever been around personally, they get better from the beginning of the season to the end, and that's what we've been kind of preaching to the guys. And I think the big thing too is just our ability to handle adversity, responding when things don't go well. Throughout the course of a game, throughout the course of a season, things aren't going to go your way, but you got to be able to handle those. And the teams that handle them better usually are the ones that are more successful. So those are kind of the things that we've been talking about.
Right. John talked about yesterday, you're going to be rotating a lot of different guys on your side.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where you feel like right now, if you have your 1 and 1A kind of guys, where you feel like, okay, this is where I know that we are this deep.
Yeah, I mean, we know who the ones are, we know who the twos are, but I would say we're going to be, like Coach said, we're going to be rotating a lot of guys. The one advantage I think we have defensively is we have a lot of guys who have earned the right to go play in football games. And so, to me, that keeps us fresh, that keeps us engaged, that creates buy-in. Throughout the course of a Big Ten schedule, get to the end of the year, sometimes it's a war of attrition. Who has healthy bodies? So I think that's an advantage that we have acknowledged and that we're going to take advantage of. So I feel good about that top group of players, and they're all going to play. And then how many reps they get will be determined a little bit by the game, and then, you know, at the end of the game, what's it look like for next week? So.
What do you see from Florida Atlantic? What offensively, where do they pose problems? Things like that.
Yeah, I think number one, I got a tremendous amount of respect for their coaching staff. I know some guys on the staff personally. I think they've done a really good job, and it's been impressive to me. You know, what they've been able to do to feature their skill level. You know, they do a lot of shifts and motions. They move the pocket well. They create a lot of picks and rubs. You know, they ran it well, they threw it well. So, you know, I think they're a team. If you watch their Power 5 games last year versus Clemson, you watch their game versus Illinois, you know, they were in it right until the very end with a chance to win it against Illinois. Against Clemson, if it wasn't for the pick sixes, I thought they moved the ball, you know, relatively well. So that tells me that, number one, they got, you know, players who, you know, rise to the challenge, and two, they got a really good coaching staff. So they present a lot of challenges. They're going to have a lot of speed. They have some new players on offense, so there's some unknown, right? Talk about unscouted looks. First game of the season, there's always an unknown, but whenever you have so many, you know, it's transient college football. You got players in and out. You don't know who the feature players are necessarily at the beginning of the season. That kind of sorts itself out. So play our roles, play with, you know, our effort.
Is this a game where you build in more in terms of, say, adjustment? Like, okay, we know that we're going to see them for a quarter, and we're going to probably have to move and adapt things on the fly.
Yeah, so here's what it is. I don't think you're building it in necessarily on the front end, because if you do that, then you're chasing ghosts. I think what you rely on as a coaching staff, our years of coaching and our years of being in the system and being able to say, hey, okay, they're doing this. They haven't necessarily shown that. This is what we go to. I'm not a big believer in making stuff up on the sideline, but you know, the gray and the beard gives you a little bit of Rolodex to be able to go back to some things that you've done before, and you're not necessarily making it up. So I think that's always a big thing in game one. There's unscouted looks. We're going to give them looks we haven't shown. You know, they're going to give us looks we haven't seen. So it's, hey, what are my roles and how do I adjust on the sideline?
Joe, how would you describe a Tom Herman offense? He's done it pretty well for a long time.
Yeah, and you know, obviously he's not necessarily calling it now, but he's the one who oversees the program. You know, the thing that I always thought, because we defended him back in the day when I was in another spot, like he gets the ball in the hands of his playmakers, right? Whoever that may be. And you know, last year they had a really talented receiver who they just got it to in just a variety of different ways, and now he's kind of moved on. But who is that guy? Well, game one, you know, you don't necessarily know who that guy will be. So you kind of got to get a feel for that as the game goes on. But I think they feature their playmakers. That's the one thing that really has stood out to me over the years.
What will you learn about your defense in game one? Normally, does that confirm assumptions you have, or do you come out of that game saying, we can do this, or we really need to do this?
Yeah, I think it shows us as a defense, are we ready for prime time, you know, in terms of when the bullets are flying. It's one thing to do it in spring, it's another thing to do it in camp, it's another thing to do it in a scrimmage, but now you got to go out and do it in a game, right? Of the rotational guys, as we're playing a lot of different players, who, you know, takes the bull by the horn, so to speak, and really seizes the opportunity, maybe who doesn't as well. And that'll be a constant evaluation, but I think the first game just gives you information of where you're at and then what you need to do to go and move forward.
Your players have been banging heads now for 6 weeks, 23 practices, whatever. As a new staff, how anxious are you to see, how nervous are you about this, about what kind of product you're going to put out there Friday night?
Yeah, so if you knew me, I worry about everything at all times, okay? And, I think that's what most defensive coaches are like, right? Offensive coaches are a little bit more laid back than the defensive guys. So I worry about everything at all times. And so, for me, it's like, I'm not wishing the day to be here. We need the work days. So like, hey, don't wish time away. Hey, today was a big day for us with work. Tomorrow's another big one with a different situation. Fridays, we're putting it all together. So we're excited for the opportunity to go play. Hey, let's get out there, let's see what we have, and let's see how the guys respond in game situations, and then let's coach our butts off. That's kind of the process. And if we do that for long enough, we'll eventually get to the point where we feel really good.
How experimental can you be, though? I mean, you got the Maryland game, the week later. I mean, like, is it more about trying to kind of?
I'm not worried about Maryland.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, like streamlining the defense so that you guys are, solid by that game.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's been a constant evaluation from the spring through training camp. What can we handle? What can't we handle? And to me, each game is its own entity. This team, is very talented, and they brought in a lot of players in the transfer portal. The quarterback that they got from Marshall, I think, is a good player, man. He's athletic. He can make plays with his feet. They brought in some receivers that we were looking at in terms of just evaluating. They pose a tremendous challenge. And so, again, watching how hard they played against those Power 5 teams last year, they're going to come in there, they're going to play their butts off, and they got really good players. So for us, it's about going out and executing our calls, flying around to the ball, and handling anything that they throw at us that we might not be able to see. Then we'll come back, look at it, and see what we need to do for the next one. So.
Are you all set with your green dots? And because I would think like you always have to have one on the field, right?
Yeah.
Does that change like substitution or anything like
Yeah,
that?
so here's our philosophy. None is better than 2. So 0 green dots, it doesn't get us a penalty. 2 green dots does. And so what I mean by that is like, yeah, we have one guy that's in it, right? We have 3 other guys who have helmets that are green dots. So that if we're going to rotate, okay, if someone so's in a series, you're going to switch out who the green dot is. But if the green dot gets injured in the middle of the drive, you may not get a green dot in. That's just the nature of the beast. And you'd rather have 0 than have 2, because we don't want to get a penalty. So
Still signaling the whole time as well?
oh, there's lots of stuff going on. There's boards, there's signals, there's hieroglyphics, there's cards. I mean, we've seen it last year, the extent that people go to try to cheat. So, we want to make sure that we're able to, have a variety of ways to get the signals in, whether it's through the earpiece, whether it's signaling, whether it's cards, whether it's, smoke signals, those type, whatever we got to do. So.
Does that help, like, are you noticing that you can give a little more detail with the helmet? Because the signal is kind of just black and white, but you can give the signal and then you can say, hey,
yeah,
look for this or that. There's a little more context on top of it.
There
is.
is.
That beneficial?
So I'm fortunate to coach a guy who wears the green dot in the NFL. So I called him and I said, hey, talk to me. And he said, look, he says it's good. He goes, talk to him, but don't talk to him too much. And so, like, there's a book by Pete Carroll recommended. I forget who wrote it, but it's The Inner Game of Tennis. And it talks about you can cloud people's minds when you talk to them too much. So we've done a lot of preparation during the week. I coach them in the meetings. I coach them on the field. We as a staff coach them. They go in a game. We might give them a blurb, but they got to go play. We start yapping in their ear, okay, when the ball's being snapped. And now they're thinking about that, and they're not on their keys. So it might be a quick reminder, hey, think about this here, but we want to get them ready during the week to be able to go play.
I feel like the Ashes, you'll be up in the box,
I
right?
am, yeah.
Who on staff or sideline is sort of tasked with making sure there's not 2 up there?
It's a combination of the coaching staff and a combination of the equipment staff. So like that thing, the extra ones are like not under lock and key, but they're away, all right? And they don't come out until they're told to come out. So again, like my mentality is I'd rather have 0 than have 2. So
Who's the NFL player?
Jack Gibbons for the Titans. I called him and I said, hey man, what do you think? And he was like, it's good. He was like, and it could be helpful. He goes, but some guys talk too much. He goes, don't talk too much. I said, I got it. Message delivered.
Are there 1 or 2 players from the spring that you mentioned that made the most progress that kind of fire? I'm sure they all did, but did 1 or 2 really pleased you with the way they got a lot of traction since the spring?
Yeah, I think, I think Malik, made a big jump from the spring to where he's at now. I think there is a lot of growth there. I thought Chuck, it just, he's been very business like the last 2 weeks. I've been pleased. Those two guys to me have made, good gains since the spring.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks guys.
Appreciate it.